Hello everyone, Tactical Lich and welcome back to more Thrones of Decay multiplayer action. Today we have a battle replay sent in by Lenorm, a rather experienced player playing as the Beastmen versus the newly updated Nurgle army led by Tamarkin the Maggot himself. Now for the army build here, Lenorm going for a rather wide army with a ton of Ungol spears with shields, one of them the destroyers of the Drakewold with their poison attacks. In the core of the melee front line, a couple of Zangors for a higher quality melee presence. Behind them and pretty much the rest of the army, different variants of Centaurs. Regular Centaurs, Centaurs of Tinge with their armor piercing and Tinge barrier, and then the throwing axis Centaurs as well, one of them the Grookhoofs of Wolfsrun who also has poison attacks and regeneration. And then in the skies, leading the army, Malagor the Dark Omen coming in with Flock of Doom, a rather nice direct damage spell, and Doom and Darkness for the leadership debuffs against the Chaffy Nurgle units, and to force demonic units into earlier demonic instability. But this might be a bit rough in this battle here, because the Nurgle army going for a rather high quality build, Chosens of Nurgle in the front line, backed up by some Pestigors, and then a single unit of Marauders. I assume there are some leftover funds, and in the skies, the Angels of Decay, Plague Drones with Death's Head. Being a regiment of renown, they do have extra leadership, so they're less prone to leadership debuffs and can hold in battle using their extra ammo to deal damage to enemies. We'll have to wait and see if Doom and Darkness is enough to force them into demonic instability. For the leadership, we have Tamarkin himself, of course, coming in with pretty much his full toolkit. His Rotting Hole's damage debuff ability can stack quite nicely with the Cultists of Nurgle, with the icon of Eternal Virulence for more damage reduction. And don't forget, all Nurgle units have poison, so the Beastmen melee DPS is gonna take a severe hit. The Cultists of Nurgle also has the adjusted Plague Bearer summon to provide more bodies on the battlefield. For magic support, the Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle coming in with Rancid Visitation for the direct damage against Beastmen, which they don't really have any healing to counteract, and also Fleshy Abundance, and that's it for the army builds. As the battle begins, the Beastmen army is shifting towards the left, trying to realign themselves towards the Nurgle army, who are just beelining straight for the closest Beastmen unit they can find. For example, the cultists here YOLOing straight into the Zangors here, tying them down, allowing the Angels of Decay to throw in some Death's Head into the fray. Centaurs are moving up trying to counter fire, but they themselves are also exposing to the counter fire of the Angels of Decay. One of the Centaurs are getting quite some damage from the Regiment of Renowned Plague Drones. On the flank, the Zantagors and Centaurs went in for a sneaky charge, doing some noticeable damage to the Chosens, but the Chosens are hitting back, dragging down a couple of Centaurs, while the rest of the Centaurs are moving into flanking or rear charging position, disrupting the advance of the Nurgle army. The Chosens are being tied down now. Same goes for the Pestigors, giving Malagor a good opportunity to drop in a 2-for-1 Flock of Doom, doing some pretty nice damage, draining away the health of all these Nurgle units. Meanwhile, Tamarkin actually walks straight through the Beastmen front line, trying to pressure away all these Beastmen skirmishing forces. One of the Centaurs have suffered quite a bit of damage throughout combat from various sources, I think, including the Angels of Decay, so they have routed but now has regrouped. In the skies, the Angels of Decay, after dealing some pretty good damage, they themselves have suffered quite heavily at the hands of the throwing axes, and Malagor was trying to nuke them down with a bit of Doom and Darkness suppressing their leadership, but that is not even close enough to put them into demonic instability, so they are holding for now, and a Fleshy Abundance managed to heal them back up quite a bit despite the damage they took. While the front line, Nurgle is completely winning in terms of melee engagement. Some Centaurs are even dragged down by an overwhelming swarm of Nurgle infantry. Flock of Dooms were attempted to drain away their health, but they still have quite a bit of HP left for now. Beastmen also doesn't have any good tools against single entities, so the Nurgle characters are largely intact. The Cultist, Sorcerer, Tamarkin all took minimal damage and can easily heal themselves back up with the Nurgle abilities. Some Chosens and Pestigors are bundled up, being boxed down by a Zangor unit, allowing some Zantagors to rear charge into them, doing some hammer and anvil. It is worth noting that Lenorm didn't throw all his units into the fight against Nurgle and is patiently keeping some units in reserve, just holding them back and conserving their vigor and HP. Another Flock of Doom here hitting so many units at once. It hit the Marauders, the Chosens, both Pestigors, and even the Angels of Decay. Another Doom and Darkness from Malagor on the Plague Drones, but unfortunately they just have too much leadership to even suffer from this leadership debuff. On the far side there, a Chosen of Nurgle has been separated from the main formation. This helps them avoid being Flock of Doomed, but that also makes them a lot more vulnerable to psycho charging and picked apart by the Beastmen army, who does have the control in the mobility game. Throwing Axes maneuvering around, probably trying to get a good angle into throwing at the Angels of Decay here. As you can see, they're going straight for the Plague Drone unit, trying to get their missiles onto the expensive Nurgle monstrous cavalry. Another Flock of Doom, a very juicy one yet again. Rusto, the Nurgle player, is definitely blobbing up way too much onto some weak Beastmen unit, especially when they're tied down by the Ungors and then Senegors slamming into their back, preventing them from spreading out. So Malagor must have gotten some really good value from all those Flock of Doom so far. 1,700 gold worth of damage value, probably already earning back his cost. Now some Nurgle infantry are pushing up, trying to drive away all the Senegors with throwing axes. Some Senegors, melee ones, will try to sacrifice themselves and disrupt the Nurgle push, allowing the Senegors to keep throwing, or buy a bit of time for other Beastmen units like the Zangors here to come back and reinforce. With all the infantry here, it would be nice for a Flock of Doom, but Malagor is a bit distracted right now as he himself is tied down by the Angels of Decay. These elite Nurgle flyers actually have similar melee stats as Malagor when they have their Cloud of Flies ability active. Being surrounded by fighters who have similar skill levels as him, Malagor is certainly not enjoying this fight, and his HP is slowly being ground down by the Nurgle Regiment of Renown. Now the Nurgle push has resumed once more, with their overwhelming force of infantry just pushing straight forward. Lenorm is kind of drip feeding some tattered Beastmen unit into them, but they're just gonna get us straight up crushed, just buying more time for the skirmishers to back off. Now the Senegors are pulling back as they do not want to get dragged into melee combat, while on the far side, the Senegors finally managed to psycho charge down this unit of Chosen. They must have gotten quite a bit of value from just working through these Chosen. They are still relatively healthy. Of course, after seeing all the action, they have taken quite a bit of damage, but they also earned back quite some value throughout killing the expensive Chosen. As for the Nurgle army, knowing that they can't beat the Beastmen in the mobility game, they're just consolidating their remaining forces. A lot of Senegors are just holding back for now, especially the Senegors of Tzeentch probably will just try to stay away and let themselves regenerate their Tzeentch barrier, as the Nurgle army just huddle around each other, trying to grind through whatever units that the Beastmen throw at them. Beastmen right now is just drip feeding units into the Nurgle grind machine, as they do want to maximize their mobility advantage to pick apart whatever scattered on the Nurgle army side. As you can see here, whatever unit that are separated from the main formation are gonna be worked down by the Beastmen mobility here, especially the Chosens. These Pestigors are probably gonna be dealt with by the Zangors and perhaps this one unit of Senegors as well. Malagor though, his HP is getting quite low after the melee fight against the Angels of Decay, so he do have to be careful not to take any more damage. All the Angels of Decay now trying to throw out the last bit of their dev's head, just trying to squeeze out all the value they can get from their ammo, though unfortunately they are now very exposed to the Sentinel firepower, as there are no units that can help them screen away the Beastmen skirmishers. So it's only a matter of time before the Angels of Decay got knocked out of the sky by a barrage of throwing axes. The Sentinels can simply walk up and shoot at them, and Nurgle can't really do much about it. The Nurgle infantry are all huddled up, and the Beastmen are just biding their time, slowly dropping those Flock of Dooms and drain away the rest of the Nurgle infantry's health. Sentinels are still shooting, so the attacking rule has been fulfilled. The problem is that Beastmen don't really have many tools to deal with the Nurgle single entities. The cultist even is at full health, so they will be quite a bit of a tough nut to crack, especially when Malagor is drained away by the Rancid Visitation, dying and falling from the skies. Not that Malagor can fight any of them in melee, but it's still a great loss nonetheless. The Black Cleaver is actually an area of effect buff, adding extra melee attack and damage on the Chosens of Nurgle, helping them to get that extra punch, but unfortunately the Beastmen simply waits out that melee buff for the Nurgle army. The bad news for the Beastmen though, the death of Malagor put a massive hit on their leadership, making them much more prone to rout, and Beastmen are not known for their high leadership anyways. As a result, Beastmen will struggle to stay in combat as their leadership runs low, especially in the late game like now. Chosens of Nurgle pushing up, trying to screen away the destroyers of Drakeworld and prevent them from supporting the fight against the single entities. Now the Centaurs are slamming into the backs of the Chosens, and their armor piercing, being the Siege variant, helps them do quite a bit of impact damage. Now they also switch over their targets to surround the Nurgle single entities, though the Nurgle single entities here conserving the Plague Bearers of Nurgle summon from the cultists, dropping it right in the late game, helping them block up the destroyers of Drakeworld despite the Chosens are being worked down. So the single entities are still not being surrounded by infantry yet, and the Centaurs will not have any infantry support in this fight. The Zantigos are psycho charging, but their charge impact damage isn't that obvious, while they themselves are being counter-punched by the Nurgle single entities, and the Nurgle character successfully drives them away for now. Though the norm is probably just going to hold back, allow them to regenerate the Siege barrier before throwing them into battle once more. The Plague Bearers will be grinding down the Destroyers of Drakeworld, but the good news is that Plague Bearers, these ones are summoned, so they will disappear at some point in the future. The throwing axes are mostly out of ammo. Even the Grookhooves are now thrown into melee combat, trying to tie down and work away the HP of the Nurgle single entities. Lenorm doing a really good job at conserving that Siege barrier on the Centaurs of Siege. They are charging into combat now, utilizing their charge bonus, but then quickly pulling them back, now cycle charging back in, hoping to maximize their charge impact damage while absorbing most of the incoming damage with the barrier on its own. Though their barrier got knocked out, so they'll have to pull back, allowing the skirmishers to move up and throw axes at Tamarkan. The Grookhooves of Wolfsrun are sitting back, and being Centaurs, they do have Perfect Vigor. Of course, that rowdy trait that gives them Perfect Vigor is replaced by Drunken Bravado, which also gives them healing, allowing them to regenerate HP, making them quite a threat in the late game, especially with their Regiment of Renowned Leadership, making them harder to get routed. So now they're just regenerating while tirelessly running down some routed Chosens. Actually, all the Chosens are on the run and are being pursued by the Centaurs. And Nurgle being Nurgle, they're too slow to save their minions. The Chosens will be run down by the Grookhooves, and the Centaurs will throwing axes, while the Nurgle single entities will be kited to death, or maybe they can actually fight it out. Balance of power is still in the favor of the Nurgle army, as their single entities are still very much healthy, especially the cultists of Nurgle. The Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle has been routed though, so things are slowly shifting back to the middle, though the Nurgle characters are still a force to be reckoned with, especially when the Centaurs are running low on ammo. Still, Lenorm's persistent cycle charging has been adding up the damage on the remnants of the Nurgle army. One vulnerability of the Nurgle single entities is that they don't have much armor. Even Tamarkan only has 60, so every time even just the throwing axes Centaurs charge in, they will still take quite some noticeable charge impact damage. Nurgle's favorite son of Tamarkan does help him mitigate some of the incoming hurt, stacking that word save with his innate missile resistance. But the cultists of Nurgle does not have that kind of privilege. Once again, throwing axes Centaurs out of ammo are thrown into the fray, while at the back there, these Centaurs are being held in the back, but probably not gonna impact the combat too much there. Their leadership is way too low and might just rout before they even get into combat. Destroyers of Drakeworld returning to the fight. Lenorm did a really good job in preserving the units. The Destroyers of Drakeworld didn't see any action until the late game, which is the only reason why they're still able to fight at the 15-minute mark. This is very handy this late into the game, especially the Destroyers are spears, so they do have the anti-large bonus to drag down the remaining Nurgle characters who both are large entities. Tamarkan is an ogre and the cultist is on horseback. It might not be much damage, but with how depleted both sides are, every little bit helps. Centaurs continues to throw their axes in, but unfortunately being blocked by their friends, they don't really have a good line of sight, so Tamarkan just comes in and crush some of these Grookhooves while they retreat away. Centaurs are throwing axes out of ammo now, cycle charging in. Every time they charge in, they took away a bit more HP from the Nurgle characters, though the Nurgle characters are punching back. Fecundity, I believe, has been dropped at some point earlier, and they managed to get some HP back, keeping themselves in the fight. Balance of power is still in the favor of Nurgle, but is slowly equalizing as the Centaurs continuously, relentlessly cycle charging down the HP of the Nurgle army. The cultist especially having much lower armor at 45, he is almost done for. Tamarkan though, of course, being unbreakable, will fight to his death. The throwing axes are now able to just keep whittling away the health of Tamergan, the Maggot Lord, while the cultist has been routed, allowing the Centaurs with throwing axes to chase him down. The Grookhooves once again return to the fight, and their regeneration is definitely helping the Beastmen's balance of power, while Tamergan is getting lower and lower. The Centaurs are still in the fight despite their low HP. Their leadership is still holding, albeit barely, pinning down Tamergan, allowing the throwing axes to continue fire away. Too slow to catch up with the retreating Centaurs, Tamergan dies with a flurry of throwing axes in his face. Now you might think that, wait, doesn't Tamergan heal himself back up when he reaches 1 HP? Well, the thing is, Tamergan's ability, the Feast of the Maggot Lord, only activates when there are characters near him. And if your only character dies before Tamergan activates his ability, then, well, he can't actually use his heal. So that's why Tamergan straight up died in the end of the game. Anyways, very good game to both players, to Lenorm and Rusto there. For the army performances, the Centaurs did a lot of work this game, earning some really solid value, either shooting at valuable targets or just psycho-charging the Nurgle army to death. The Centaurs of Tinge really doing some solid work there. The rest of the Centaurs, not so much, although I do believe that the Centaurs overall just have a stronger performance. Now, not only Centaurs, but cavalry in general, because of the pursuit behavior update. Now all the cavalry are more effective in charging any foes, not just the routed ones, but also the non-routed ones. For the rest of the army here, the Zangors and Angors didn't do that much value overall, other than the Destroyers of Drakewold, who managed to hold on into the late game and grind down some of the single entities. Malagor the Dark Omen, Doom and Darkness didn't do much work since they couldn't crush the leadership of the Angels of Decay, but the juicy Doom and Darkness was really good against all these blobbed up Nurgle troops. For the Nurgle army there, the single entities didn't do enough to carry the game. Tamergan tried his best, but being a foot lord, he just got peppered to death by a ton of throwing axes, unable to catch up with the much more swift and agile Centaurs. The Chaos Sorcerer of Nurgle did some good damage with Rancid Visitations, and the Angels of Death, holy hell. The Death's Head are really devastating, and surrounding and beating down Malagor did some really good value. The infantry though didn't earn back their cost, as they mostly just suffered at the hands of the psycho-charging Centaurs, and mostly just got picked apart by the much faster Beastmen mobility. And yeah, that's it for today's multiplayer battle. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you want to see more total multiplayer action, be sure to subscribe to my channel. If you want to showcase your own replays, feel free to drop by my Discord and share the replay files. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.